So Augustine Ramirez is the one that kind of stands out to me as being a fade. I'll start with the positive. He's an amazing fantasy profile. Power speed, which you rarely ever get from a catcher. The problem is he's terrible defensively. I think he was last in blocking pitches. He was okay in framing, very bad at throwing out runners as well. And then in the last 3 months, last year, hit a 74 WRC plus. So if you're just not very good defensively, and in terms of hitting skills for an MLB team, you're below average.
I'm really intrigued by I'm always intrigued by the catcher position, as you probably know, but I'm more intrigued than ever because I feel like it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. But to what end? Like where are we taking these guys? I mean, I'm still pretty aggressive, but I gave Phil the top 10 catchers by AAV through 8 auctions, I believe. And those catchers are Cal Raleigh of the Mariners, AAV of $29, Ben Rice of the Yankees, $24, Shea Langoliers of the Athletics, $22, William Contreras of the Brewers, $21, Augustin Ramirez of the Marlins, $20, Hunter Goodman of the Rockies, $19, Salvador Perez, $18, Drake Baldwin, $16, Will Smith, $14, Yainer Diaz at $13. So those 10 catchers, all going for well over $10 by AAV through 8 NFBC auctions. So Phil, my question to you is, of those 8 and factoring in their current prices, which of these catchers do you think is most likely to disappoint this year?
I love how you're giving out AAV instead of ADP. You're in auction mode. I love it.
Hey, look, it's the freshest news, man. It's
Yeah.
AAV's just immediately ahead of ADP as soon as it comes out.
Yeah. So Augustine Ramirez is the one that kind of stands out to me as being a fade. I'll start with the positive. He's an amazing fantasy profile. Power speed, which you rarely ever get from a catcher. The problem is he's terrible defensively. I think he was last in blocking pitches. He was okay in framing, very bad at throwing out runners as well. And then in the last 3 months, last year, hit a 74 WRC plus. So if you're just not very good defensively, and in terms of hitting skills for an MLB team, you're below average. I'm not convinced he keeps those DH at bats. He'll start the year probably playing, I don't know, twice every 3 days at catcher, and then playing at DH when he's not catching. But if he has an April similar to what he had those last 3 months, I think he could go to catching once every 2 days. Liam Hicks is pretty good enough bat, better defensively, and Hicks actually had better WAR than Ramirez. I know WAR isn't totally accurate for catchers, but kind of still gives us an idea. So I think there's huge upside for Ramirez because of the profile, the power speed, but where he's going, I'm not sure he really has much more upside than all the other guys going around him, except the floor, I think, is the lowest of all those guys. All those guys are pretty much locked into at least get 450, 500 plate appearances, where I'm not convinced that Ramirez, at least there's a path to him not getting there.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. I mean, I think I think he can get there. And I think one of the best arguments for him getting there is that he's just like the only viable piece left from the Jazz trade. So like if they pull the plug on him midway through this season, I feel like they're basically admitting they got nothing from the Jazz trade. So I feel like that's probably his ticket to just stay in the line. I mean, assuming he's producing, like obviously in the scenario where like he's got like a 70 WRC plus, like he's not going to just keep playing. But like I think as long as he's sort of around league average as a hitter, he's got enough raw power that he'll still be playing a bunch because they've just kind of invested in him, and I'm sure they're going to hope he just turns into like a 30 homer DH first base type guy. And they're already kind of giving him sort of like kiss of death quotes about his defense, like we really believe in Gus, and like we he's going to go to be our catcher, the fact that you're throwing out those quotes like before pitchers and catchers even report, and Joe Mack is obviously coming. Like they love Joe Mack. He's a classic like real catcher who can do both things, catch and hit. I do have a share of Ramirez, of course, just because of that speed option at catcher. But I did recently pass on him in a spot where I might have taken him just based off of similar concerns. And I like a lot of players on the Marlins as just sort of really cheap fantasy specs.
Yeah.
And like they just have guys, like they have like I like Kemp Alderman, who's a AAA outfielder that they have. Like he might be a better hitter than Agustin Ramirez like in June, and like you could see scenarios where that goes that way. And they've just got a lot of similarly talented players that could break out, and if Ramirez doesn't hold up his end of the bargain, he could definitely miss out. So I definitely.
And I don't hate that. Like in a 150 DC with no raw, I don't hate the pick because he has the bat and the speed to be as valuable as Rice, maybe even more valuable. Because if he does what he did last year, like, and he gets down 650 plate appearances, which he almost did last year without playing the full season, he can get there and be catcher 2 behind Riley probably. So it's a decent shot to take when you're shooting for an overall. But I think when we get into higher stakes drafts and fab leagues, it's just the floor when you're spending in an auction. Was it $21 he's going? It's a big chunk of your budget for a guy with such a low floor.
Okay, so sticking with the catcher theme here, let's say you didn't want to shell out for 2 double-digit dollar catchers. I've got these 3 guys. One of them's not even eligible at catcher yet, but I think these are sort of 3. You really kind of have to take sort of a leap of faith, but there could be a big payoff with these guys. And I want you to rank them in order of how much you'd want them at their current AAV in an auction. So UT only, Ivan Herrera with the Cardinals with an AAV of 9. Samuel Basallo with the Orioles with an AAV of $8, and then Carter Jensen of the Royals with an AAV of $5. So I want Phil to rank Herrera, Basallo, and Jensen in terms of how much you'd want them in an auction.
I'd go Basallo first. I think last year the overall numbers didn't look good, but everything kind of looked okay. Like the EV was fine, the strikeout percentage was manageable. Things think like 187 BABIP, so some bad luck in there. So he's gonna have to hit at some point to earn the playing time. And the leash probably won't be super long with the Orioles with all the guys they have. But I think he's cheap enough, and the upside is high enough that I wouldn't be surprised if he end up in the group of guys we discussed earlier, and do kind of like Drake Baldwin did last year maybe. So, and for $8, yes, the floor is low, but like a low floor is a lot more manageable with an $8 player than it is with a $20 player. And then I'd say after him, I have a big gap to the other 2. Herrera, very interesting in terms of skills, but it's just so hard to get three catchers in the auction round. 2 catchers plus Herrera, and kind of just waiting for him. I think it's just in a draft, you can at least get your catcher in round 30. In this case, you have to get him in the equivalent of round 23. So you're kind of wasting that. And I'm not sure that part of it is so much reflected in the price. In an auction DC, I don't hate it as much because getting your third catcher in the auction round isn't that bad because the backup catchers go kind of early, so I don't hate it. But in like an OLAC or an auction championship in Vegas, it's just it's so hard. And if it takes a month or a month and a half for him to get catch eligibility as a UT player, he just isn't worth what you're paying for. And then Carter Jensen, I think just him not seeing too many lefties, and they're always kind of being a little bit better, and kind of loving platoons. I don't think it really caps his upside. And the K rate was super high in AAA, which makes him a big risk. So it's kind of one of those guys where I don't see a path for him to get to 550 player appearances. And I see the downside where he just doesn't perform. Just strikes out too much.
Do you think Basayo is going to get significantly more plate appearances than Jensen?
I think he has the opportunity to. If he hits, I think he can. I think just I think the floor for both is low. I just think Basayo probably has at least a path to playing a little bit more. And the biggest thing is like the K rate in AAA was a difference of 5% between the two, which I just think makes Basayo's bat just better suited for Major League, at least at this point. I know it did the small sample they had in majors didn't make it seem that way. But the AAA sample is bigger, so I kind of trust that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely on your side of preferring Basayo to Jensen. I think Jensen's just a very interesting case because there's certain there's like very loud Jensen stands out there, and I was honestly expecting the projections to like him just a tiny bit more. Like I'm not surprised the projections love Basayo, or love him relative to like how he performed in the big leagues. But I just think it's interesting like how Jensen is like if all you kind of care about is how he performed and how he produced like over the final like 3 months of last year.
Yeah.
He really pops. Like he wasn't really doing anything wrong. He had a really rough start. Like he went down in my rankings. Like I think on the first update of last year, because he just got off to such a rough start. I think I was pretty bullish on him before the year, and then, but I also don't think that doesn't mean that something definitely changed especially with minor leaguers. I know like people cite like second half, final couple months stuff with big leaguers, and I think it's even more noisy on the minor league side just because you've got a guy getting to AAA at the same time where all the pitchers who started at AAA are in the big leagues or they're hurt, and so you just get to put up these really great stats. But then he was awesome in the big leagues, so
yeah.
I think Jensen. I really wanted to get your opinion on Jensen and Herrera specifically, and the Herrera auction case. Very very strong point there about you have to buy him in the UT, and then you have to buy 2 other catchers in the 2 catcher spots, which definitely. Like I'm surprised that it's a $9 AAV on Herrera, even as good as his projections are. Like you're not going to get that all at the catcher spot, and just having to carry that one. Maybe it's a $1 catcher, and you had like a guy that you really wanted for $1 or maybe even $2, and then all of a sudden there's someone else in the room that wants him for 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden you're really rostering a guy that you can't wait to cut. Definitely get the downside there on the Herrera case, especially in auctions.